Hey folks, I'm here with Representative Thaddeus McCotter of Michigan. Well, sir, I want to ask a few questions about Afghanistan. It's been a considerable amount of time now since General McChrystal has put his recommendations in front of the president. He's asked for more troops and to move to a population-centric counterinsurgency strategy. Now, I was curious, is that something you support? Do you think that the president should resource that, or do you have other ideas about what we should be doing in Afghanistan?
Well, I think we have to go to a counterinsurgency strategy. I think that we saw that work in Iraq under the Petraeus plan. One of my long-term complaints starting in 2003 about Iraq was that we were doing a top-down Lyndon Johnson's Great Society meets Sunnis and Shia out of the green zone that wasn't going to work. Every society has traditional roots of order, the family, the community, and they build up. The United States started with town hall democracy and built up. Some of us would argue a little too far at the present time. But that exists in every society, and they have to be facilitated to grow and build their own institutions of governance at the local level and build up towards I would argue in Afghanistan, a decentralized model of federal governance which they would be accustomed to and not fear. The plan that has been put forward by General McChrystal will work with sufficient troops to provide the stability that allows these local institutions to begin to grow and develop on their own. I think that the delay in making this determination is unfortunate and counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish there. Look, when you run for President of the United States, you understand that being Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces is one of the inherent constitutional responsibilities that come with that office. This is not as if this is a situation that is new. If the President does not believe that the report of the general, the commanding officer on the ground, with the support of General Petraeus, is insufficient, then he should ask for it to be considered insufficient and tell him how his strategy, the president's strategy of counterinsurgency, which he announced in March, can better be implemented, at least be honest enough to say that it's been abandoned. To continue to string this out while men and women, Americans, our coalition allies, and Afghans themselves are fighting against the Taliban, are fighting against al-Qaeda and other insurgent forces, is doing them a grave disservice because they need to know what the mission is, how we're going to accomplish it, and how this administration fully supports it and can articulate that to the American people. That has not happened at this point in time, and I think that that is entirely, again, counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish there, which is the liberation of the Afghan people. Because fundamentally, the United States military, being a force for moral good in the world, is trying to liberate the people who are oppressed in Afghanistan to ensure freedom at home for ourselves. And every day that we delay in articulating that and in adopting this counterinsurgency strategy is going to be another day that is a delay that hurts people and hinders our ability to accomplish what we've promised the Afghan people and prevents us from keeping our word to them.
Now, just yesterday, Secretary of Defense Gates made a statement stating basically that he was asking President Obama to make a decision. And we just heard that Hamid Karzai has agreed to a runoff election. Do you think it's likely the president's going to go ahead and kick this can down the road until after the runoff election?
Well, we've seen members of the administration outside of Secretary Gates saying that somehow this national election question has to be settled and resolved before there can be a determination on whether the counterinsurgency strategy will work. I would argue that that's backwards. You can be pursuing the counterinsurgency strategy now at the local level where it matters most while you're having an immediate resolution under fair, honest, monitored elections of the national issue. Again, in Afghanistan, you will have a decentralized national government. The real strength of that country will come through the local associations and the local control, much like de Tocqueville talked about the strength of the United States being our local control, our local voluntary civic associations, which undergirded the national government.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about Vice President Biden's cunning plan to do counterterror. And I got to be honest, I come from the special ops community, and among my friends, we call that the magic ninja plan. Because we don't have any magic ninjas is the problem. And he wants to, pull back, use drones, use targeted strikes against al-Qaeda. Do you think there's any viability to that, or do you think, as you said before, that counterinsurgency is the only way we should be looking at it?
Well, it seems that it's a total abandonment of the fact that the Afghan people will have to live under the Taliban again. That somehow, this is a kinder, gentler Taliban, and it's not. It's also, as you rightly put it, this is a political theory applied to the hard reality of military operations on the ground. It may look good in theory, but it's not going to work. So I think that as an abandonment of our commitment to help the Afghan people be free, it doesn't work. And also as a practical military solution, to stand alone as our only strategic operations within that theater, it's not going to work either.
Do you think the delays and, I guess, the consideration of pulling back in some way, shape, or form in Afghanistan is going to weaken the resolve of the Pakistanis as far as their actions against, because I mean the Taliban are on both sides of that imaginary line that we drew in the mountains. You know, the Pashtuns are on both sides, the tribes that support them are on both sides. They don't consider it a border. Do you think right now they're in the midst of a big operation in South Waziristan? Well, the first times they've actually gone deep into those areas, and I guess my concern, and a lot of people's concern, is that that might cause the Pakistanis to consider not pushing operations, and potentially, you know, they've already made deals with a couple of the tribes that are only doing operations against the U.S. and coalition forces. So do you see that as a problem for our alliance with the Pakistanis?
Oh, clearly, if the United States, under any guise, commits what is actually a withdrawal of our troops without securing the freedom of the Afghan people and the elimination of the Taliban as a threat to their freedom, you're going to continue to see the enemy, both the Taliban and its various manifestations, as well as Al-Qaeda and others, continue their two-front destabilization operation. They're not only trying to destabilize Afghanistan, they are actively trying to destabilize Pakistan. If the United States shows weakness, and if we start to withdraw, and if our coalition partners start to withdraw, before we've honored our word to the Afghan people, before we've helped secure local institutions that are stable and sustainable in a decentralized national government, you're going to continue to see, with every bit that we withdraw, they will continue to up the ante in their operations and escalate against the democratic government of Pakistan. And as you and I both know, Pakistan is currently a nuclear power.
And a proliferator, unfortunately,
yes,
in a lot of ways.
The Khan network.
Do you think we have, I mean, I've heard various people discuss the fact that we have eyes on the Pakistani nukes. Do you think they have security on those in any way that could give us comfort that there's no way the extremists, the Islamists, could get to those bombs?
Well, I think it always has to be monitored. We always have to work with our Pakistani allies to make sure that those are secure. But we also know something fundamental, is that if the United States withdraws precipitously without finishing the mission in Afghanistan, there's nuclear weapons in those sites are going to be even harder for the Pakistani government to control, as the enemy turns its more of its attention fully upon Pakistan and its destabilization.
There was the recent aid package to Pakistan was a large increase, almost I believe about a threefold increase, but it came with a lot of increased control and basically us telling them exactly how to use the money. Do you think that's going to be helpful, or do you think that's something that potentially, as we look at going forward, we ought to give them the opportunity to, I guess, not be handheld as they attempt to use our aid money?
Well, I think that what we have to make sure is that the money gets down to the local level. It's a preemptive reconstruction within Pakistan itself. They've been subject to rolling blackouts, they have food shortages, they have other critical problems. Average daily Pakistanis have to know the United States is not there simply to use their troops as a proxy army in the war for freedom against terrorism, but that we are committed to the betterment of their everyday quality of life. That money has to get down to the local level. It has to build sustainable institutions of governance and of economic progress within Pakistan itself. So I think that we have to continue to engage the Pakistan government, and if it takes strings to get that money down to the local level to ensure that it isn't put to some other less productive uses, that's fine. Because in the end, the people of Pakistan are going to determine whether or not Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, either within their country or slightly on the other side of the border with Afghanistan, are an existential threat to their continued democracy and their continued ability to hopefully move up in the developed world and join the family and remain in the family of free nations. If we do not allow that to happen, if the Pakistani people decide the United States is not a partner they wish to be with, I'd hesitate to point out what type of consequences not only they, the Afghans, and the whole free world will face.
Well, sir, I appreciate you spending some time talking about these issues. I think they're of vital importance, and I think it's been somewhat shameful that they've been put on the back burner, as a lot of other things are going on. There's a lot of things that have to be done as emergencies domestically, and we've actually got a shooting war going on, and it's been I believe, somewhat regretfully underexposed. So.
It absolutely has, and that's one of the things that I find frustrating about my own Republican Party is the fact that you have domestic problems that we have to address, but you have American troops in military theaters, strategic operations underway. It is a war for freedom against terrorism. We are supposed to be able to do war and peace and prosperity at the same time. And as you talk about the President of the United States, do not forget that within the constitutional responsibilities of his office, he is supposed to be able to multitask.
He seems to have outsourced that to Rahm Emanuel and Joe Biden at this point. That does inspire confidence.
One more reason I oppose outsourcing of American jobs.